Welcome to the Cryptocurrencies Show. This is Lior Gantz, and today I'm with Frank Holmes, the legendary fund manager out of San Antonio, who is a great friend of Wealth Research Group and one of our closest contacts. You know, over the past 3 decades, Frank has managed to create substantial wealth for shareholders and clients, mostly in the natural resources sector, backing some of the biggest winners ever. And I was truly amazed when it was announced that he is taking a large personal position with HIVE blockchain technologies and then becoming the company's chairman. During the first 3 months of trading, HIVE blockchain outperformed all cryptocurrencies in the world between September and November of 2017. It was just an amazing period. It's earnings seasons right now for the company, and I wanted to get a timely update as well as get Frank's latest thoughts on what's happening in the blockchain economy, since Wall Street is now on the prowl to get their clients positioned, and HIVE blockchain has a clear advantage, being that it is the purest Ethereum and soon Bitcoin play in the world without owning cryptocurrencies on your own, which the traditional funds want to avoid doing. So that's perfect. As HIVE is trading at a major low right now, close to $1.70 Canadian, I just placed a big order myself of shares on the open market, and I wanted to get Frank's insider outlook on what's going on with the company. Frank, how are you today?
Excellent, my friend.
I want to start off with the story of Venezuela and their release of the Petro, a government-issued cryptocurrency backed by the nation's oil reserves, currently worth $6 billion worth of coins. Now, Iran and Turkey also announced plans to follow suit. It looks like the countries which the U.S. is sanctioning the most are trying to opt out of the U.S. dollar system and become free agents, which of course raises questions as to will the government use this currency to fund activities that the banking system can't oversee and are going to be problematic, potentially even violent. Frank, what do you think of this?
Well, I think it's a disastrous country, and I think that Venezuela is just corrupt and dangerous, not only for narco trade. There is, and I was in a meeting in Vancouver with very senior government that tracked money laundering around the world, were sharing with me that Venezuela is connected with Iran and Hezbollah. And so they're always concerned about anything coming from Venezuela, outside of, highly educated oil industry people that move to Calgary. Anything else in that country is dangerous. And so I think that one has to recognize that these countries are trying to do something to reinvent themselves with a new currency because it's hot and new. Well, just be aware. But I do believe that it allows a government, if everyone was on a cryptocurrency digital platform, then they control money supply, they control money, they control all of your money. So this idea of being independent, and the idea of Bitcoin when it first grew, is all of a sudden governments are saying, we like this idea, but we want to control it centralized. And I think that's the battleground being laid out.
Well, that's major news that governments will likely or potentially fund terrorist movements or any insidious agendas using their centralized blockchain, and that could be deadly. You know, Frank, the cryptocurrency economy has helped to turn the tables around. Instead of Wall Street insiders and corporate interest and Silicon Valley angel investors getting first bids on the action of any new company, we saw the grassroots movement building the wealth for Bitcoin and all the other major coins of today. There's a major wealth gap in America, which is widening daily, as you know, and I want to get your take on what's going on with this revolution. You've been part of the investment industry for nearly 4 decades, and you see how Wall Street has tried to corner the market and make sure they can make billions before the average person who is putting in the effort to get himself exposure to the best deals gets a glance and is able to lock a position. They have a clear advantage. So is this something that's revolutionary, the way that HIVE was taken public and the way that these cryptocurrencies are able to turn the tables around for the average person?
Well, there's no doubt it's impacted the Gini coefficient. The technology sector, when you have four guys owning what's up and make $1 billion in a short period of time versus the average person, it does create that widening gap. But more important is what you're commenting on in Silicon Valley, is that they've been able to capitalize on the overarching and reaching regulatory regime that's taken place. John Chambers told me last year, every year I go to Harvard for a week of case study with other CEOs. There was about 160 of us from 80 countries, and we just banter through in these cases and understand new business models. And John Chambers was talking about Cisco, and his comments were that he created 10,000 millionaires, but he said he could never do it today with all the regulations. And we've had, the idea of regulations coming in, Sarbanes-Oxley, et cetera, they have to be streamlined. They have to be streamlined because what's happened is that there's been a 75% drop in IPOs. There's a 50% drop in new issues. And money that's being printed is showing up in big chunks in Silicon Valley. In fact, there are so many unicorns now that that industry in Silicon Valley is approaching $1 trillion of assets. And that lift, so the IPOs in the 90s used to be around 80 million. Now they're over 300 million when they take place. And so that lift of you having this speculative opportunity to invest at $80 million valuation and tripling is taken away because it's all on that upside by Silicon Valley. And I think that's what's really important for investors to recognize. And I'm a big believer the success of HIVE is because it was the first to say you can raise money for blockchain technology, you can raise it in Canada, and all of a sudden $1 billion has been raised in 3 months. Now we raised $200 million on Performance. If you try to do that in the US, it would be accredited investors minimum is 150,000 versus 25,000 in Canada. It can be up to a 2-year hold on stock. It's 4.5 months hold in Canada. And so you're seeing many institutions go into look at the opportunities, just like Novacrat's raised money in Canada, that he said that doing his deal in the U.S. would take 2 years of audited statements. So I think it's really important for investors that they're now getting a kick in the can.
Frank, let's talk about a recent example. You were part of the launch of HIVE Blockchain Technologies. For listeners to get an idea here, Wealth Research Group conducted due diligence on HIVE when it was still private. And on September 18th, 2017, when the company started trading publicly, we published a full report a day before on the operations, and many subscribers locked in positions extremely early. Over the course of September through November, shares skyrocketed from 74 cents Canadian to 675 Canadian. Almost a 900% move. And Frank, I've shared this with the guys at Fiore Group who were instrumental in putting this deal together. Some subscriber turned a small $20,000 position into $80,000, $90,000 even in 30 to 50 days. But what I think is most unique here is that you decided to take the company public not in the U.S. But in Canada. When you take a company public in the U.S., only rich accredited investors would have been able to even trade shares with the business being only 6 months old as it is today. So the fact that you've taken it public in Canada was a true testament of the company's willingness to open the field and level the playing field for average investors. Today, shares are very low in terms of their valuations. They're trading at about $1.70, $1.80, depending on when you're listening to this. But in terms of value, it's a much better deal than in September because you guys have 2 facilities now, soon to be 3. And I think that's why GMP Securities just released a report with a price target of 535 Canadian, 300% higher than today's valuation. By the way, you can go to wealthresearchgroup.com/revenue and download that complete report from GMP. Frank, could you give us a take on what's exactly going on with HIVE blockchain today?
Well, I think that it's unprecedented what we did in that 3 months from September to December that we raised $200 million. We created a roadmap for growth from $1 million a month in revenue to $1 million a week, which has the potential to go to $4 million a week by September. I mean, that's just an incredible growth plan that I could never do in see in the gold investing world. And based on that is Ethereum and Bitcoin prices today. We've been able to expand our production. So just think that we started 1 million a month, and we're now 1 million a week, and that's going to grow. We have milestone dates in April, and another major one when we go to Bitcoin production in September. That will become a miner of you. And when it comes to mining these coins, there are two different types of technology. You need an ASICs card basically to mine Bitcoin, and you need GPU cards like NVIDIA to mine Ethereum. The other part of this growth is that all these other new currencies that came out, these ICOs are being launched. They're predominantly on the protocol of Ethereum. So we feel pretty good about, we don't know who's going to win the race and who's going to become the biggest currency as a new ICO, but we like the fact that they have to mine Ethereum to create their business model. And so you look at what we've done, we raised $200 million in those 3 months, a massive build out with the best people in the world, Genesis Mining. You go to a YouTube and you can see they've got great videos on Iceland and Sweden and building what it looks like to build a rig and to build a huge plant, industrial scale. That's what GMP's research report is, building an industrial scale mining company. And the best part for any investors, and I think that what's important for your listeners, is that we had 11 new institutions come into HIVE in that recent financing. Just think of it. In the last 2 weeks of December, we raised $115 million when most people are having holidays and celebrating. And 11 new institutions. Fidelity has gone to about 10% of the company. It's got great sponsorship. So I'm very, very excited. And then next week, we're doing our webcast on our release for our earnings and what we've achieved in this past quarter and what we hope to achieve in the next 8 months as we quadruple from our production. So it's a very exciting time for us. We came off with the currencies. There's no doubt that the seed shareholders that made a lot of money, like any venture capital firm, they sell out the position like Facebook early investors did when it went public. This is normal and it gets absorbed. I'm so happy to see that how much stock has been absorbed. New ETFs are being launched. They're buying blockchain equities, and HIVE is showing up in those. And I think that will rock the world when we start in the next 3 months reporting quarters of showing this growth. But the bigger part for us all, Lior, is to recognize that every January, these cryptocurrencies have a pattern of going through big corrections. And they seem to get a surge after the Chinese New Year, which is going to be next week, March the 2nd. I believe March 2nd or 3rd is the exact date. And so we see this also in the world of gold. Gold has this big run up into the Chinese New Year and then goes through its normal correction mode before it goes on to its other cyclical pattern.
We just wrote a lengthy letter on this subject exactly. January is the low point for the precious metals and for cryptocurrencies historically. So this seasonality does present a buying opportunity and is quite natural. Now, Bitcoin, in fact, has already doubled since hitting the $5,900 low. As we're doing this interview, HIVE just released earnings and the Chinese are back from their New Year's vacation. What impact does this all have on the crypto economy?
Actually, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. Ethereum's daily volatility is about plus or minus 6 to 7%. So that means 70% of the time it's a non-event for Ethereum to go up or down 7%. Now, how does that compare to the stock market? Oh, daily it's 1% plus or minus every day. It's normal volatility. Gold is 1% also, but gold stocks is 2%. But Ethereum is 7%. Bitcoin is 7%. So what's happened is that HIVE has gone plus or minus 7%. It's become a proxy for hedge funds that want to trade the currencies or hedge their position that they're long or short. So I think that that's something to recognize in the market, that it's added to the volatility, but you can use that to your favor. Every time you get an Ethereum off 7% and the stock's off 7%, it's probably a good buy for a bounce. If you're a trader, and that's what the pro traders are doing. I think that this correction, so we had this effect, the cyclical pattern. There's always something that comes out that's geopolitical. And what do we have? We can see the top here was when the date was announced for the SEC to be speaking to the politicians on cryptocurrencies and the risks and opportunities, but more important, the risks of these ICOs as people selling really a security, not registering a security, and the dangers of them, and some of these exchanges. And the SEC went after Bitfinex, I think, over Tezos board, the audited statements. There was lots of negative drama that took place with an exchange. It took place with a hacking of $500,000 in Japan. All this time, this is during getting these negative statements and facts came out as the SEC is getting ready to present to the government, to the elected politicians. So I think that this is the perfect storm that we witnessed and we sort of weathered through. But what's positive is that the CME has come up with a futures market. It's not leveraged, but the fact that there's a futures means it's being institutionalized. The fact that the SEC is trying to get rid of the riffraff out there that just put their name on their public company called blockchain to pump their stock, they're going after those characters. That's good for everybody. We need some sound refereeing against the parasites and the pathogens in the capital markets. And I think that it's important for investors to realize that this is just pure speculation, but there's some real positive parts that I look at is that, first of all, most of the buying in this space has been on with cash. Even if it's done with a credit card, they pay off the credit card. It's a cash economy. It's not a big margin economy. When you trade the futures market with gold, they get 20 to 1, between 10 and 20 to 1 leverage. When they go and trade stocks, they can get at least 2 to 1 leverage. Most of the money that's been going into Coinbase has had unprecedented growth. Remember, Coinbase grew more in 3 years in number of accounts than Schwab did in 30. I mean, it's just incredible growth. And so I think that this is a big correction. People don't like the fact they've lost $2,000 has fallen to $1,000 valuation. But it's the fact that it's just cash. It's not going to end their world. And there'll always be some crazy people that mortgaged or whatever did it. But it's so remote because the Coinbase likes to take only money that's wired in quickly. They don't like taking credit cards. And the other thing is that the millennials, I'm talking to them, and they're telling me they prefer to buy Ethereum than they would stocks. And I think what's happened here is HIVE has all of a sudden become a way to play Ethereum without going to a Coinbase, but you can buy the shares. And we, as GMP says, we're the industrial buildup of the space. So stay tuned.
Lastly, Frank, the AML, the anti-money laundering compliance that HIVE has achieved by minting only virgin coins that have no history, no trading history, and therefore comply with any anti-money laundering compliance. It has to be a monumental feat and a great achievement, a critical advantage with regulators and both investors and institutional investors, since the Ethereum and soon-to-be Bitcoin in your treasury that you're holding on behalf of shareholders is pure, it's virgin, like you said. Therefore, it meets all government requirements. How important is that for the company and for shareholders?
Oh, it was critical because I was trying to launch a product. I was trying to launch the ETF. And I found very quickly with the SEC and in Canada, the OSC, that they just were not allowing it because their fears were some hacker takes their coins from stealing from companies and or wallets or exchanges and all of a sudden showing up and being cleansed in an ETF listed on New York or Toronto. So that wasn't going to happen. And that knowledge I'd gathered from it, such as Genesis Mining success and growth as being the largest cloud-based company where people can use their technology and mine coins in Iceland and Sweden. All that knowledge gave me a huge advantage because I discovered that Genesis Mining was going to partner for HIVE, but we'd be producing virgin coins. We don't have any of those AML, anti-money laundering risks, or KYC, know your client issues, because we just produce virgin coins. And that news was very important because some of the big firms, brokerage firms like Raymond James, was concerned of even allowing their brokers to buy HIVE because it's in cryptocurrencies. And so we've educated and gone around to educate people that we're not trading. We don't buy in the open market. We only mine, and we'll start a program of selling on a mathematical model this year. Some of the production, and I think that we will never be a buyer at this stage because those coins could be tainted. And so we're a very safe way to play the space, both for institutions or retail.
Frank, as a long-term investor, along with my partners, we are extremely excited and grateful that you have promised a lot to shareholders and over-deliver on that. I'll see you in person in a couple of months, and we're very bullish going into Q2 and Q3 of 2018 with the Bitcoin facility that I think will catapult the company into a higher level. Again, the complete GMP securities analysis, including their 535 Canadian price target, which is 3 times higher than the current company's share price. Go to wealthresearchgroup.com/revenue. We will have another important update on the company's operations soon. Remember, this business is merely 6 months old, and already they're making millions of dollars a month with explosive growth potential. Thanks for joining in today, and keep tuning in for more updates.
Thank you, my friend.